well, welcome to the Get Fit with Jodelle podcast. I am, as usual, Jodelle, and I just have a few questions for you. Are you tired all the time? Do you have headaches, migraines weekly or monthly, digestive upset that won't quit, and anxiety like you've never had before, sleep so disturbed that you can literally feel your body aging faster than it should? Well, it's not about the food, like I've said before. Today, you're definitely going to want to listen up to the expert guest I have on, who will leave you wide-eyed and amazed at how your home and even your car could be making you sick. And no, we're not necessarily talking about mold here, although that can play into it. I have a passion for helping my clients and listeners mitigate the dangerous effects of electromagnetic radiation from our devices, our phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell towers. Because you guys, this is real. This is published in the research, and it's getting worse in our environment, that EMF is a major part of our health decline. I myself am highly sensitive to it, and I've taken extra precautions in order to live in this modern tech world and not be so affected by it. But that's why I'm honored to welcome my next guest, who will even enlighten us more as to how we can live in the modern world but not be so damaged by its effects. So Brian Hoyer is a fellow functional nutritional therapy practitioner like myself, trained with the NTA. So we definitely have that in common. But he has trained with the highly regarded Klinghardt Academy, something I'm jealous of. I'd love to go through that, and become a certified geobiologist trained by pioneering naturopathic and environmental medicine clinic in Austria that's been addressing EMF and geopathic stress since 1983. So he kind of knows his stuff here. He's trained with the best of the best. He's the founder of Shielded Healing, a company with the goal of helping modern humanity recreate their home environments that more closely mimic our historic human habitats, yes, and help you regain your health instead of continue to get sicker and sicker. So I'm super excited. Brian, it's immensely awesome to welcome you today. I've wanted to have you on for quite some time, so thank you for joining me. I know you're a busy guy all over the country, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited to share with your audience, and I think we got some really good nuggets to share here, and things that are practical solutions for people, because this topic can actually be very overwhelming. Since we're always using technology, we want to keep our technology, we want to stay in touch with our friends and family. But I'm here to bring a little bit of doom and gloom, but also some hope, so that people have real solutions.
Yeah, because, as we all know, we live in like the Zoom world now. So everybody's on their device more than ever. So let's start at the beginning, Brian. For those that don't know you, I want my listeners to hear that, like myself, we started our training in nutrition, but realized that the health implications of our clients weren't stemming just from a poor diet. So what led you to devote your life's work to understanding EMF? And for the layperson, maybe we should define EMF as well.
Yeah, so EMF is electromagnetic fields, and it can be anything from the electricity that we have in our homes, and that's that's in the wires in our walls, to Wi-Fi, all the way up to ionizing radiation, and different cosmic rays and gamma rays that we get from the sun and from space, and also from other types of radiation. But then also right in the middle, we have visible light is actually a type of electromagnetic field. It's just in the visible spectrum of the electromagnetic range. And so all of these things can have an impact on our biology. And the goal I really have in what I do with my company, and also what I've done in my nutritional practice, is that we're trying to recreate, always talking about food and how, we need to eat more like our ancestors, nutrient dense whole foods, and think about where your ancestors came from, maybe eat more like they did for their region, but also take into account where you live in your region. I mean, if you live in Hawaii or Florida or closer to the equator, you're going to probably even feel like eating differently than you would if you lived up in like Minnesota or Alaska, or someplace where you get a lot more seasonal changes. So, all of these things are topics that I would cover with my nutritional clients. And it kind of dawned on me as I was taking continuing education from the Klinghardt Academy that, oh my gosh, I'm talking so much about what we're putting into our body and that being more ancestral, whole food, chemical free, all of those things. But then look at the environment that we're putting our bodies into. It's laden with chemicals. There's all these frequencies floating around. How do we get back? This question kind of came into my head. How do we get back to a more ancestral environment? Because that's like a whole other half of the puzzle besides what we're putting into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And, we talk about mold and metals and pesticides, herbicides, all these terrible things that kind of come into our body, and we're willingly putting them in or unwillingly breathing them in.
Yeah.
But, the EMF is a whole other aspect where it's out there and it's bombarding us. It's the waves are interacting with our cells and our body and all these voltage gated channels and everything. And how do we actually create solutions where we don't have that interference, at least for the time when it matters the most? And then the question becomes, when does it matter the most? And so that's something that we've kind of discovered as I've been working with people, shielding the different environments and realizing that, what, the time that it matters the most really is when your body is supposed to be in a more parasympathetic, relaxed, healing state. Because anytime you have stimulation from the outside and it raises those cortisol levels and takes you out of that parasympathetic state, it puts your body in a state of stress instead of a state of healing that it's supposed to be in when you're sleeping, when you're eating, or even when you're detoxing, trying to relax in an Epsom salt bath in your bathroom, or doing sauna is another thing. And so the priorities really are to shield certain areas. And then when you come out of your so-called cave into the modern world where we have these inevitable exposures, we need to kind of relax a little bit more instead of stressing out about everything, and realize that we're doing all that we can to live in this modern world. But we need to improvise and implement some of these ancestral practices and know how our biology is actually reacting with these different frequencies.
Yeah, that is so powerful what you said, because it's not just about, like, we can't change everything. We can go out and we can do all these great things with our body, but inevitably everywhere you go, you're going to be in a Wi-Fi setting, because Wi-Fi is everywhere. And now we even have satellites in the universe that are going to make worldwide Wi-Fi, which is really scary. So, I mean, there's a lot that we can't control, but there's a lot that we can control. And that's what's so important for people to understand, because it's not just in our walls, like you said, or our Wi-Fi routers. And it's mainly this little rectangle we always carry around. Everybody's got their little rectangle that they carry around in their pocket. And this is really dangerous. If we could see the amount of radiation coming out of our devices, like little laser beams, I think we wouldn't touch them. I think we wouldn't go near them. But unfortunately, we can't see them, but that doesn't mean they're not affecting us. So to that extent, like, let's talk about all of the different exposures, because it's not just in your smartphone. It's not just in your computer. It's not just having your Wi-Fi router on, it's in our cars. Like, let's talk about all the different exposures that people may not be aware of. And even things like dirty electricity that people don't even know is a thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, your phone is like a cell phone tower in your pocket, you
Right.
know. And a very easy suggestion I would and habit that I would recommend for people is to keep that phone in airplane mode whenever you're going from one location to another location. Yeah. And that's a very easy first habit to implement. Airplane mode whenever you're walking or traveling.
On airplane mode. It's on airplane
Great,
mode unless I'm using it. It's on. Of course, my husband hates that because he can never get a hold of me. But
yeah, well, that's why text messages are really good. You can just say "call me" if you know the person's in airplane mode, and then they'll call you when they get off of airplane mode. And that's why I say like to do it when you're traveling or when you're not available to talk, like when you're doing an interview. Keep it on airplane mode when you're walking from one place to another. And then when you land in that destination and you need to check, set the phone down in a location, take it off airplane mode, walk away, let it upload all the messages and everything.
Yes.
And then go back to it. And then you can check it for a time and you can catch up on those things. But the fact that we are always walking around with it in our pockets and it's pinging all the time, the towers, it's updating all the apps regardless. It's continually disrupting different channels in your body. And there's even been some of your listeners may be familiar with Dave Asprey, and he talked about how like he's a really techie guy, and he loves technology. I mean, he's got all these different biohacking tools and everything, but he didn't really know what to think about EMF in the beginning, but he was carrying his cell phone around in his front pocket, and he did a bone density scan, and his bone density on the hip where he carried his cell phone was much less than the bone density on his other hip. And so that was the thing that really kind of pushed him to, oh my gosh, this stuff is real. It's affecting my health. And he's constantly checking all these biometrics about his body and his biology and doing labs and scans and all sorts of things. And that was the thing that really kind of pushed him over the edge to, oh my gosh, this stuff is affecting not only our stress levels, the cortisol levels, the inflammatory pathways in the body and stimulating those, but it's also can affect things like bone density. Yeah. And, we have a real frail society in general, much more so for various factors, including nutrition, but also, if you can imagine us being bathed in this electromagnetic radiation all the time, what's that doing to our bone density of our entire body? And what would our bodies be like if we didn't have that exposure 24/7? So, the phone is very important. Shutting Wi-Fi off at night is another easy step, because you're not using the internet at night unless you have a server and whatever. And even then you can wire your internet if it's that important. But then the things that a lot of people don't think about is, guess what? 24/7, you have cell phone reception if you turn your phone on.
Right.
So where's that reception coming from? It's coming from the cell phone towers that are out there, and they're blasting 24/7, all night long, all day long. The radio towers are doing the same thing. The television stations are doing the same thing. And there's a whole plethora of frequencies within the range of a few megahertz all the way up to 80, 100 gigahertz now.
Yeah.
And the body is having to actually, your body's like an antenna, and it's actually receiving all these different signals and trying to figure out what in the world is going on. Ancestrally, we were never exposed to these types of frequencies before, and they're stimulating us in different ways with those voltage-gated calcium ion channels, creating inflammatory compounds in the body. And what we found is that when you actually block those out by shielding the bedroom, either with a canopy over the bed made out of a silver cotton fabric, or painting the walls with a graphite and carbon shielding paint. And you have to paint the walls, the ceiling, and you have to do the floors and use the fabric over the windows. When you do that, people get more restful sleep. They get deeper sleep. Their body heals more. We've had people get off of thyroid medication, night sweats stopping overnight. And it's just amazing the things that the body is like, oh, finally, I can actually take care of business when I'm supposed to at night, when we're sleeping and rejuvenating and repairing all the cellular damage from various exposures during the day. Yeah. When you open the door for the body to be able to do what it's meant to do, it heals. Your body wants to heal. And that's why the name of my company is Shielded Healing, because we found that when we shield, you get that healing, those healing mechanisms, those dormant healing mechanisms that are innate to the human intelligence. They just kind of they're dormant, and they wake up when they don't perceive the stressor anymore. Okay, it's safe. We can go out and do some deeper repair instead of just damage control all night long, because we have this constant bombardment all night long while we're sleeping. And so that's kind of the principle, the philosophy of what we do for people when we come to their house is we find all the sources in the home, and then we build a protocol for the house that's permanent, and you do it one time, and then every single night you go in there and you get your ancestral healing sleep. it's a therapy that is wonderful for children, because with my kids, sometimes it's hard to get them to eat the right foods. Sometimes it's hard to get them to swallow the right pills, or find pills that they'll even try, like nutritional supplements. But the shielded room's easy. They're going to go to bed anyway. They're going to go to sleep. So they get their 8 hours of healing, stress-free therapy in a grounded and shielded room every single night while they're sleeping. And it's been incredible for people that are chronically ill too, that just can't get over that hump. Like, they hit a wall and nothing they do works. They can't detox. They can't get their energy levels up. They can't get their gut healed. A lot of times it's this extra bombardment of all these frequencies that are blasting into their bedroom while they're sleeping all night long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much that you said there made me have little light bulbs that go off. But one thing, when you mentioned Dave Asprey about that bone density, I can relate to something similar with a client, a personal training client. So this individual would carry their cell phone in their pocket while I was training them. And they always said, well, this leg is just my weaker leg. And I'm like, take your cell phone out of your pocket while we're training. And as soon as they did, within that next set of repetitions that they did, they're like, I already feel stronger. Why? And I was like, because the reception from your cell phone is weakening your bones, it's weakening your muscles, it's weakening your nerves, and you've got to get that off of you. And so many people have the wearable technology and they have their phone always on them. But a simple fix, like you said, would be, download your music ahead of time, download your podcast, and then keep it on you on airplane mode. At least that, if you have to have it on you to track your steps or whatever, at least you're going to be doing one less issue against your body. Because that's the thing, is it's this bombardment of all these different stressors at one time. You're in a gym with Wi-Fi. You've got your phone on you. You've got that radiation. You've got Bluetooth on with your AirPods or whatever. You've got that radiation. You've got other people around you with their devices. So it's this culminating effect that, like you said, we've never seen in human history. And we are only now just scraping the surface of what it's doing to our health. Talking about the actual science behind it, like, let's say a Wi-Fi router has 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz on the label, or when you click on that Wi-Fi, that's what it says. Can you break down the amount of radiation and the difference between what people are dealing with when they see that?
Yeah. So the amount of radiation really, there's actually a lot of debate on whether that matters, if it's stronger, or if it's the frequency that matters, or the type of waveform that it is. And so honestly, like, when you see 5.8 or 5G on your computer, mm-hmm. The G actually stands for gigahertz. It's not like 5G, which stands for fifth generation wireless, which everyone's really hyped up about being so terrible, which I kind of agree with that, but 4G was absolutely bad. And yeah. And a lot of the 4G frequencies are increasing with 5G. And so that's part of what 5G is. But as far as the routers go, I actually prefer, if I was to be exposed to Wi-Fi, to have the 5.8 gigahertz Wi-Fi on and the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi off, because the frequencies that resonate more with the human body are below 5 gigahertz, including the 2.4 gigahertz and even the radio stations. Because if you think about the wavelengths, the reason they call them wavelengths is because they have a certain length. In the wave actually has a certain length. Mm-hmm. That's why they call them wavelengths. Mm-hmm. So like for FM radio stations, like you tune into on your car, it's like 88.5 FM or 107.7. That's pretty much the range, like about 88 to like 108 megahertz. And that's the FM radio stations. Those frequencies are in like the 4 to 8 foot range. Mm-hmm. And what's the size of the human body? We're right in the middle of that.
Right.
And so if you've ever had a radio on with the old antennas and you reach toward it and you have bad reception, you reach toward it and the reception gets better. Now you know why. You're actually becoming an antenna and you're resonating with that, and the receiver is letting you know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Even before you grabbed that, your body was already resonating with those frequencies, because you can even like not even touch the antenna. You can get like a foot away from the antenna and the reception will start to get better. What that means is that your body is actually resonating with the radio frequencies in the air, and when it resonates, your skin is resonating and it's rebroadcasting a signal outside of your body from your skin.
Yeah.
And that means it's also broadcasting inside your body and stimulating all of your organs and tissues and everything.
Absolutely.
And so there, that happens with the radio stations, but it also happens with the cell phone towers, all the way up to, as far as the skin effect goes, it goes all the way up to about 4 to 5 gigahertz, just below 5 gigahertz. And then all the higher frequencies, they have smaller waves. And so they're going to resonate more with like your fingernails or your finger or different organs inside your body. And so everything has its own resonant frequency.
Right.
And when you have these alien pulsations that were never on this planet before 150 years ago, that are just all of a sudden pulsating all of our organs and our biology, it creates different types of stress responses for different types of organs and tissues, depending on the frequencies that we're being exposed to. And we're getting like a plethora of all kinds of frequencies all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why we need like a broad solution. And the shielding of the bedroom works so well for people at night, is that their body's able to repair and then handle more of the stress during the day. So you're basically taking 2 healing steps forward at night when your body's doing most of the healing work that it does. And then during the day, your defenses are kind of up. You have inputs that you can put into your body, antioxidant inputs. The food that you eat supports your body with against oxidative stress. So you can take your vitamin C, you can do astaxanthin, you can get out in the sunlight, get that mitochondrial stimulation from the near infrared wavelengths from the sun. You get vitamin D production. There's all sorts of, you can get grounding therapy by going barefoot on some wet grass outside your house where there's no electricity around.
Mm-hmm.
There's all sorts of inputs that you can do to support your body when you're in the more awake state. You're in the more sympathetic state, and your body can handle more stress. We're meant to be able to handle a little bit more stress while we're awake. That's why, like, when you're getting tired and you're getting ready to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden there's bam, like some really loud noise, it really jumps, like scares you, and it makes you get into that sympathetic state right away, because your body's like, oh my gosh, I was so relaxed, and now, okay, it's go time. I need to figure out what that loud noise was, run away from the tiger or bear or whatever it was. And, but if you're in a more awake state and that same loud noise happens, you're just kind of like, what was that? That scared me a little bit, but it doesn't have nearly as much of the heart throbbing reaction as you do when you're in that more parasympathetic state. So you're able to actually handle the same stressor much better, much easier when you're already in that awake state, that sympathetic state. And the same thing is true of EMF. When you have all these EMFs bombarding you at nighttime, your body is much more susceptible to those, versus when you're in a more awake state, more sympathetic, you're more aware that there's things going on around you that can potentially harm you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so EHS, electro hypersensitivity, I've been having some experts on talking about that, because I really feel like that's something that everybody actually is sensitive to electromagnetic radiation. They may just not know that the symptoms they're experiencing is them, their bodies repelling against the unnatural radiation. Because like you mentioned, there's natural radiation from the sun. And I love that you mentioned the sun, because that is so important to help our mitochondria, help our health overall. We're solar powered creatures, but yet there's all this non-native stuff. And something that people may not be aware of is that EHS, or hypersensitivity to electromagnetic field, is a real medical diagnosis. It's also referred to as idiopathic environmental intolerance. And so this is something that you can actually go to your doctor and say, yeah, there's a code for this. You can put this into my diagnosis and prescribe, me something. But really what they need to prescribe is get away from it, mitigate it, get less and less of it, and be more outdoors and in the sun and away from devices. But to that effect, I wanted to discuss the fact that cell phone towers are now not just towers. They're sitting on top of hospitals. They're sitting on top of hotels. I had a really hard time in the last year. Whenever I would travel somewhere, I'd do the little antennasearch.com and try to find a place that didn't have a cell phone tower near it. And inevitably I would show up and there it was on the building next to it, or on the building down the street, or right on top of the building that I'd even, looked up. They're just proliferant everywhere. So is there a way to shield in everyday life? Like, is there a way, I wear like a little EMF cape, but what do you suggest for people when we're living in this toxic world daily? I know you said the bedroom is so important, but what do you do during the day when you're out and about?
Yeah, so during the day, I mean, there's a lot of people that are coming up with various strategies and trying them out. And generally, I kind of ascribe best to implementing more ancestral habits and practices during the day, making sure that you get outside in like around about 3 hours around solar noon.
Yeah.
Is ideal. But even if you get out for 20 minutes, it's better than doing nothing. If you just have a little bit of a lunch break, get outside, get as much skin exposed to the sun as possible.
Absolutely.
That actually, the photobiomodulation effect that stimulates the mitochondria, actually the EMFs damage the mitochondria, and the near infrared radiation you get from the sun actually repairs it. And so you're kind of helping to reverse a lot of that damage that's being done whenever you get that sun exposure on your skin. And it doesn't matter what time of the year for near infrared therapy from the sun, because 40% of the sun, about 40% of the sun's light energy is near infrared wavelengths. And so you can always get that from the sun, no matter what time of year it is or where you're at. It's not like the UVB radiation that you can only get certain times of the year, depending on your relationship to the equator and the tilt of the earth and everything. But yeah, so that, I mean, sunlight is a huge thing. Learning to breathe through your nose to get nitric oxide into your lungs and your paranasal sinuses and your bloodstream is very important. And then there's also simple exercises you can do, because one of the main mechanisms of action of EMF damage is that there's nitric oxide inside the cell at the same time that there's superoxide. And when the voltage gated calcium ion channel is stimulated by the EMF, the wireless or the electric field or the magnetic field, it opens that calcium channel up, lets calcium into the cell, and then that stimulates this production with those three molecules of this inflammatory molecule called peroxynitrite. And if nitric oxide is not in the cell, then that damage does not occur. It basically will reduce the damage by about 80% if it's not in the cell, because it needs to be there in order to interact with the superoxide and the calcium that's going into the cell in order to create that molecule. And so how do you get nitric oxide out of the cell? Well, if you do, there's a nitric oxide release workout that Dr. Zach Bush has on the internet. I think Dr. Mercola had it. I don't know. He might still be on his Peak Fitness channel. Most of his stuff has been taken off of YouTube and censored recently, including my interview with him. But yeah, the nitric oxide release workout, or nitric oxide dump is another name for it. It's just these series of easy exercises you can do 2 to 3 times a day, about every 3 hours. And it gets that nitric oxide out of the cell and into the bloodstream. So you have more blood flow, and it makes it so that it's not inside the cell where the damage will actually occur. And so that's like a really easy thing you can do every day. And then cold therapy is another thing that gets nitric oxide out of the cell. And heat therapy with the heat shock protein, that gets nitric oxide out of the cell as well. So there's all these strategies that we can do to help lessen the damage during the day if we can just control those nitric oxide levels, getting them out. And a lot of it has to do with exercise and just challenging the body with cold and heat and things that our ancestors would have done anyway. But as far as protecting ourselves with like shielded clothing, that's kind of a mixed bag depending on the environment that you're in, because how do you increase reception of an antenna? You add more metal to it, like would add aluminum foil to the antenna on the TV or the radio, right, to get, or you go and you touch it and you become part of that antenna. So the same principle exists with your body. If you have metal touching your body or close to your body, you're actually becoming more of an antenna, even though you're blocking some of the frequencies and everything. Sure. So I'm not such a huge fan of the shielded clothing at this point, but I think there are certain situations where it can make sense. And that's the same experience we've been getting from customers who have tried it, is some people who are really electrohypersensitive, they'll be like, I can't even touch shielded clothing or anything that's metal because I feel the frequencies coming off of it, and it stings, it pains me. And then others are like, oh, I can't live without it. Like whenever I go to the store, I have to wear it. And the only commonality I can find between those two viewpoints is that, there's bio-individuality as one, but also the bio-individuality of the environment that the person is in, and the frequencies. Because if you have a radio tower that's like, a mile, 2 miles away, that's going to be a really strong signal that's going to be resonating with the shielded clothing and impacting you much more than if there's a cell phone tower that's operating at a higher gigahertz range, like 3 gigahertz, that's a mile away. It's not going to resonate as much with that shielded clothing as what the radio tower transmission would. So every environment is slightly different, and you're going to have different types of exposures. And this stuff is so complicated to measure. I've done some measurements on it, but you have to have like a lab set up and kind of know what direction the frequencies are coming from, and be able to record like what's the resonance coming off of this, and it's a different frequency than the primary frequency coming in and actually resonating the metal object or the body. So it becomes very complex, and there's so many complexities. It's just I try to do like the Hippocratic Oath and do no harm first in everything that I do with my nutrition practice, but also with the shielding of bedrooms, because there's a lot of people out there who suggest things like, okay, shield one wall because that's where the cell phone tower is, but then you don't know, there might be a cell phone tower over this direction that's reflecting back off of that and then causing more of a problem, or there might be a tower that goes up another day. They're hiding them more frequently, and they're hiding them really well now. So oftentimes, like you were saying, you can go on antenna search and you can search for it, but it's not 100%, exhaustive list of everything that's out there. So, really the safest thing is to do full protection if you're going to do anything for the body, for the bedroom, for the house. And there's some nuances to that depending on the different types of EMFs that we're talking about. Right now, we've been talking mostly about wireless radiation, but there's other things in the home that are, there's 6 stressors that we test for, and wireless is one of them. And so we got 5 more that we test for, and some of them are combination solutions. Like when you shield the bedroom, you're also blocking the electricity that's coming from the walls because the walls are grounded. And so and you're also blocking the dirty electricity because that's riding along the electricity in the walls. So those are like, it's the shielding of the bedroom is really a 3-for-1 solution. And then there's other things that you can do in areas where you spend a lot of time to help reduce your stress levels, your cortisol levels, and support your adrenals more.
Yeah, we should probably go into those 6 things because I want people to understand what you do. I can't wait to have you out to my camper and shield my camper, because you shield all kinds of environments. But I'm particularly interested in people understanding, like you said, the amount of cell phone towers that are up. to look for those little white bars on top of your apartment building or on top of the building next to you, because these could be why you're having so many health issues. So before we dive into, I want to know the 6 things that people are exposed to, like you talked about, that you deal with. But before we dive in there, let's talk about like the main issues that you're seeing as far as that electro hypersensitivity, the main problems people can look for just to know that EMF could be a problem for them. So what say you? What are the main things that people come to you complaining about?
Yeah, probably the biggest thing is sleep. You know, insomnia and sleep issues, not being able to get to bed on time, staying up too late. Even though you really want to go to bed early, you can't seem to fall asleep at the right time, even though you're taking care of all the blue light and everything. Sometimes the stress of the radiation and the electric fields just is too much for your body to actually get into a relaxed state where you can get your melatonin high enough, because your cortisol keeps going up and then your melatonin goes down. And so you're having a hard time getting into that deep, relaxed state before you go to bed. So insomnia is huge. Getting deep sleep and REM sleep are also huge things that people track with their Aura rings. And then when they're shielded, it improves dramatically, like by 50 to 100% or more. And then, some other symptoms are things like tinnitus, or some people say tinnitus, ringing in the ears, buzzing, headaches, pain in different parts of the body, in the joints. There's all sorts of symptoms, just general fatigue, brain fog. And the list of symptoms is really wide, because the way that the frequencies impact the body via those voltage gated calcium ion channels is that they attack like the weakest parts of your body where you have inflammation already, because those channels are already being stimulated in the areas where you have inflammation. And so when you're exposed to EMF, it actually stimulates those areas even more, and where you already have problems. So like they really attack like the weakest link in the chain, wherever your health is. It can be your thyroid, it could be your kidneys, it could be your gut, it can be your vision or your brain. Those channels are concentrated in the brain and in the heart too. So if you have heart fluttering, that's a huge symptom of EMF sensitivity.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. Those are the things I'm hearing too, which is why, you can work with people on nutrition, but if you don't get their environment right, then you're kind of spinning your wheels. Specifically, when you mention the gut, so a lot of digestive issues, I have a theory, why Nexium is still one of the top selling drugs, not only because of poor quality food, but also because where do we hold our cell phones? Where do we put our laptops? Right in front of the gut. Like we're holding it here and it's radiating right into our delicate organs. So in your opinion, does this play into gut stress? And on another note, could it be the cause of, these big bloated guts we see that are inflamed? Maybe it's not so much weight gain as it is inflammation from the effects of EMF. What do you think?
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, there's a lot of our flora that also perceives, like the beneficial flora that perceives EMF as a stress.
Yeah.
But also the pathogenic, the mold, the fungus, the yeast, and different types of bugs and other pathogens, parasites inside of us also perceive EMF as a stressor. And so what do they do? Like if you have an unbalanced gut, what happens when you stress out all the organisms inside of it? They go into survival mode and they start to try to proliferate like crazy. And if there's already an imbalance, that imbalance is going to get worse, because those pathogenic organisms are going to be already kind of in control of the environment, and they're going to proliferate even more and win out. And so if you have any slight imbalance of your gut, EMF actually can make that worse in that way. But what's interesting is when I was first starting to get into a lot of the EMF shielding for my nutrition clients, some of them I had to keep on like leaky gut supplementation almost continuously, just
Right.
because of their lifestyle, the way that they lived and everything. And it
Mhm.
wasn't until we shielded their bedroom that all of a sudden they didn't need it anymore. It's like a month went by after they were sleeping in the shielded room, and they didn't need any of their gut healing supplements anymore. And then I started shielding rooms first before I put them on any supplements, and they were healing without any supplementation.
Mhm.
So it has a huge impact on, if the person's eating right, generally their body wants to heal if they're getting enough nutrition. And we don't always need these huge amounts of supplementation to get the body to heal. We just need to have a good environment in many, many cases. Some people, everything's shot. They have low stomach acid, their gallbladder's all backed up, they got
Right.
detoxification problems. They need all of that support in addition to the shielding, but it's like they can't. If you think of like healing as a scale, which I often talk about in a lot of the interviews I do, if you have like all the nourishing things that you're doing and putting into your body on this side of the scale, and then all the stressors on this side, at some point, like if you have a ton of stressors that are weighing down and halting your healing mechanisms, no matter how much you put on this side, it's never going to budge that scale in the right direction.
So
And so
true.
at some point you have to think, okay, how do we remove some of these stressors so that we can tip the scale in the direction of healing? And then all of these nourishing foods and supplements and everything that you're doing finally are able to, instead of just doing damage control because of all these stressors, it's trying to like, okay, we got to fix this, we got to fix this heavy metal, we got to try to bind to that, get that out of the body. Okay, that resource is used up. Okay, and this EMF stress, we need to mitigate some of this inflammation, use some of this antioxidant support here. And then it's like, okay, now where are we at? Okay, well, we're still stressed out because we have this constant bombardment. But as soon as you start to remove some of these things, the EMF stress, you start to like get them out of that moldy environment,
Mhm.
and remove some of these other stressors, like stop eating this pesticide laden food and these don't spray the herbicides on your garden, get rid of that shampoo that's toxic, the skin cream and the whatever that has polysorbate 80 or like all these
Yeah.
different toxins. You remove all those stressors, and then everything you're doing over here and you're spending so much money on starts to work so much better.
Right.
And EMF is a huge part of that because it's attacking your gut membrane, your gut barrier. There's certain frequencies that will actually cause leaky gut. Absolutely.
Mhm.
It'll cause leaky brain. It'll cause a leaky
Absolutely.
placenta. It'll cause leaky eye.
Yeah.
Leaky parts of your eye and blur your vision.
Mhm.
So there's all sorts of stressors that are over here on this side. EMF is a huge one that attacks those barriers. If those barriers are not intact, then all the toxins are going to get in much more easily and impact your tissue and your more sensitive organs much more profoundly.
Yeah.
So
So
that's why, like, when you do the bedroom first and then you start to add in all the supplementation, it's like a magic trick. It works, and it's amazing. And I just love experiencing that with people and seeing how they benefit from the entire experience.
awesome. Yes, I can't wait to have you help me with mine because I know I've done all I can do, as a non-professional EMF biologist. I'm not by any means what you have been trained in. So I need that extra help. And, to what you were saying, it's unnerving to what amount the radiation is doing to our immune systems. Our immune systems are housed in our gut. And so if your gut's not working, then neither is your immune system. And never in human history have we needed a stronger immune system than right now, and so I do think that the amount of radiation we're exposed to is really part of the problem with why immune systems are so dysregulated right now, and why we're seeing the influx of the pandemic that we're seeing is because I do feel like EMF is weakening us as a species. And so to that effect, there was a blog post on your website that I really appreciated. You got some very informative blog posts, but one of them was the title, I think it was "Wireless Radiation Perpetuates Chronic Infections." So you were mentioning the gut bacteria and things like that. So let's talk about like how we really do need to help our gut bacteria by stopping the exposures and limiting our exposures and shielding, like you're talking about. And then jump into those 6 things that you're going to test when you come to somebody's home.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the general principle with the gut bacteria is that you need to try to shield the gut from all of these external stressors. And the gut is mainly repairing itself at night while you're sleeping. And so if you're able to shield the bedroom, you're shielding and you're shielding your whole body, you're shielding the gut. And there's a gut brain axis as well. And so protecting the brain is important as well. And so there's several different strategies you can use for that. One of the things I like to add in addition to the shielding, is to use, I don't have one right here with me, but a sauna space photon light.
Yeah, I have one of those.
And I will put that on my gut as therapy for like 10 minutes a day, sometimes before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll put it on my back as well, because it does penetrate about 4 to 5 inches into the tissue. And then also on the back of my head before I go to bed. And in order to heal the gut in a more permanent way, you also have to work on brain health. Yeah. And so you need to do combinations of both of those. And you can do that with different types of glandulars. You can, do the gut healing with various gut healing nutrients like L-glutamine and zinc carnosine. Licorice root can be helpful, and there's some formulas and stuff like that that are all together in one supplement. And then brain health, you need magnesium L-threonine is a really good one for brain health. And magnesium is a huge supplement that's immensely beneficial for people that are trying to repair EMF damage, because it acts as a natural calcium channel blocker, which will block that channel from opening, where it causes damage in the creation of that inflammatory peroxynitrite molecule. So healing the gut and the brain together using adjunct therapies like the near infrared light therapy is super important. But then I mentioned shining it on the back of your head. That actually gets circulation to flow more right before you go to bed. And one of the main things that your body does at night is it's supposed to be detoxing the brain. And melatonin is supposed to be flooding the brain at night. And the brain cells actually shrink by about 40%. And they discovered this, I think it was in like 2011, maybe a little bit later, but the University of Rochester, they had this study where they found out that the brain has its own lymphatic system. They call it the glymphatic system. Right. And so it shrinks by 40% at night. And then melatonin is supposed to flood the brain. And melatonin is a potent antioxidant, probably the most potent one in the body, even more so than glutathione. And it's supposed to sweep up all the oxidative stress, the beta amyloid plaque, all the little oxidative stressors that have been formed inside your brain. Is supposed to be swept up and bound to that melatonin molecule, and then basically flushed out the back of your brain, your spinal column, through the cerebral spinal fluid into your circulation for your liver and your kidneys to take care of. Now that process doesn't happen all the time because things are gunked up back there. And so getting that light and that heat on the back of your head helps increase that circulation before you go to bed. And it helps improve things. And then also elevating yourself a little bit can help, and getting gravity to go in the correct direction. That can help with that glymphatic flow too. And metal detox of the brain and all the different types of oxidative stressors that are in the brain at night. And that's probably one of the most healing things about EMF shielding is it's so healing for your brain in that way. Yeah,
no, I love that. And I'm glad you plugged Sauna Space. Their photon's wonderful. And I'll actually be podcasting with them again soon. So definitely I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So briefly, the 6 things you test when you come in, it's not just wireless, like you said. Let's go there. What do you do?
So yeah, a lot of houses have electrical problems. Raise your hand if your house has had an electrical problem in the past. I mean, like most everybody will raise their hand. Yeah. But there's wiring errors that can cause magnetic fields throughout the entire home. like really intense magnetic fields, just like you're underneath the power lines. Everyone avoids those large power lines.
Yeah.
Typically when they're shopping for homes, like, I don't know about that. Even people who don't really, who think all this EMF stuff is woo woo, they'll look at that and be like, I don't think that's really the healthiest place to stay. Just there's something instinctually inside of us that's like, we're repelled from those locations,
Right.
but there's wiring errors where the readings are just as bad
Yeah.
if you have these types of wiring errors in your home. And so we can go in and test for those and identify which circuits those are on and how to fix it, help the electrician to kind of go through. A local electrician is what we usually work with. And we help guide them through like what we found and which circuit it was on and what to look for and that sort of thing. So magnetic fields are a huge one. We obviously test all the wireless in the home and identify a lot of the different things that you may not even know are emitting, because so many more devices are emitting frequencies, so you can connect it to your phone and your app and whatever. You have smart appliances now and all sorts of different devices out there. So there's a lot of times there's hidden sources in the home that we have to kind of hunt down for people, and then you replace that with it, or you can turn it off. And then electricity in the walls. It's mainly a problem in the bedrooms, but also in offices. You have all these unshielded cords and cables that are causing you to have this constant voltage on your body, where your body and your cells are contracting pretty much all the time. So that's something we test for. We also test for dirty electricity. That's thousands of different frequencies that are riding on the electrical lines. And you can mitigate that with better grounding of your home, or you can filter it out with like a whole house filter right at your breaker box and filter it before it comes into the house. And then sometimes we'll be able to also identify things in the house that are contributing to dirty electricity, like CFL light bulbs. There's certain flashlight chargers that are really bad. There's some air conditioning units and pool pumps. Solar panels create a lot of dirty electricity with the inverter. And then, so dirty electricity, we got magnetic fields, electric fields, dirty electricity, wireless radiation. Artificial light is another huge one that we test.
So cool. Yeah.
And so we're looking at if the bulbs you have flicker, and you can also take like a slow motion video of a lot of your bulbs, and you can see if there's any flickering of your bulbs. But it's not like a visible flicker, it's an imperceptible flicker. That's why you have to take the slow motion video to get it. But we have flicker meters and equipment that test the flickering of the lights, and there's a certain range that we want to see it in. And then also the spectrum of the lights, because a lot of our lights are really high in the blue range, and they're void of a lot of the red frequencies that are more healing frequencies. So we want to get more into the red range, more like what the sun is like, have a more balanced full spectrum in the house, matching the outside light environment with the inside light environment. We have certain bulb recommendations and replacements and things like that we recommend to people. So that's 5. And then the other one is geopathic stress. That's radiation that comes up actually from the earth. And so our ancestors, there's traditions in like Chinese medicine of feng shui. And they would have certain areas where they'd be like, okay, this isn't a healthy place, but this area is. And ancient Greeks and Romans, they would often have sheep graze on land for up to a year before they would build on that land. And they would dissect a few of the herd and see what their organs looked like before they would decide that this was a healthy place to build. So there's different energies that flow along the Earth's crust that are more intense in some areas than others because of different ore deposits that are more conductive and various other factors, underground water flowing and pressing extremely hard and mixing dissimilar minerals against each other, and creates a battery-like effect, which can create energy rising up in certain areas and not in other areas. And now it's kind of gotten even worse because we're putting all of our electricity into the ground and it's flowing through the ground. So if there's more conductive areas, that actually makes it even more stimulating in the areas where those fields are already coming up naturally. So what we're doing to this planet is we're kind of surrounding all of the airways with this electromagnetic soup. And then we're also sticking stakes into the ground and making circuits go through the earth. And that actually makes the geopathic stress even worse. They're also called telluric currents, if you want to look it up in the literature. But those are the 6 main stressors that we test for, and we build basically a whole protocol for the house and prioritize the bedrooms where you sleep, where you eat, where you detox. And we see some really amazing results with people where they've been stuck and stagnant in their health journey for a long time.
So fantastic. That makes me so excited when I finally get that. I'm going to do a podcast with you shielding or showing me how we're going to shield my camper. We'll do like some sort of a live video of that. But, while I have you here, then I'm going to ask some questions about campers in general, or RVs. Are they pretty would you say they're more so electrical than a home? Like, because you might have wires underneath the floor and in the walls and in the ceiling. Have you seen that, or have you seen many campers that are more detrimental than homes? And then also, what about a power surge protector at the box where we plug in at the campground? Because I felt like we were getting some dirty electricity, so I got this gigantic surge thing that I put on our box at our camper. Yeah. Have you seen those, and do those seem to help? I mean, am I doing a good service just doing that, or what do you say?
Yeah, I think a lot of the surge protection can be beneficial. It's you kind of you'd have to measure it to know for sure if it's just a generic surge protector. Like, it's definitely going to help to not fry your devices and stuff in there. But sometimes they do have things like capacitors in there that can help actually reduce the dirty electricity as well. So that's just something you have to test. But the one that we install on homes is also a surge protector, but it has other elements in it that, like rectifiers and all these things that electrical engineers would know the verbiage of it. But sure. There are things in there that filter the dirty electricity and also do surge protection as well. So that can be helpful. And then we do a lot of consults for campers and tiny homes and container homes and things like that. So those are a lot of times easier to shield. And RVs in general, they have batteries, and they tend to most of the lights are usually running on the battery, and so they're DC. They don't flicker because they're a continuous current rather than AC, which is pulsed. Alternating current is pulsed electricity. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times those particular circuits don't impact the negative body voltage from the AC that we would get, but they're still the best thing you can do in a camper right away is just turn off the breakers, all the breakers that you can for the AC circuits. Okay. And you could, if you don't need the shore power, you can just unplug at night completely and just be in there. Okay. And then a lot of campers have metal incorporated into the framing, which is generally good for shielding from wireless. Mm-hmm. But you often have to button things up in places where you don't know for sure. Obviously the windows, but sometimes there's other areas where you're going to get some leakage in there if you're in a really high wireless environment where there's lots of cell phone towers around.
Yeah, thankfully I'm not in that environment, but yeah, I definitely can't wait to have you come in and check everything out for me. So as we wrap up here, let's talk about how they can contact you, how the listeners can get their home shielded or their camper shielded. Let's talk about what's their first step going to be.
Yeah, so I have about 5 people that I've trained, and they live all over the country: California, Georgia, Ohio, Florida, Arizona, and then I'm up in northern Idaho. But we travel all around the United States mainly. We've ventured into Mexico a few times as well. And once Canada opens up, I'd be happy to go up there.
Sure.
But yeah, we travel all around the country, and everyone that I've trained has done at least 50 assessments with me. And they've also had a lot of them have had training on their own from different EMF schools as well. So, so yeah, they can contact us at our website, and we have a list of all the tours there. So shieldedhealing.com. Mm-hmm. And we'll have a coupon code for your listeners and everything. Awesome. And they get $100 off the assessment. Mm-hmm. And generally the cost, it starts at around $1,000 for like a small home, and then it goes up like $100 per extra bedroom and per, I think, 1,000 square feet. So if you have a really large house, it ends up, it takes more time, obviously. Right. And the more bedrooms that we focus on, we really try to focus in on those bedrooms and build a perfect protocol for each room.
I love that. And thank you so much for offering the discount for the listeners too. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes. And yeah, looking at your prices, I mean, for the amount of work that you guys do, I know to some extent, just watching certain podcasts where you've gone into people's house, I mean, it is extensive work, and you take a lot of time, and you come back and you reevaluate. So, I mean, it's highly worth every penny. And I will say, if you need anybody in the Midwest to get trained by you to do some, I would love to get trained by you to be able to be your Midwest gal. So that's something maybe we can revisit sometime. But yeah, I'll have all the links in the show notes to how people can reach you. And definitely, if nothing else after today, sign up for their newsletter, because their newsletter is wonderful and the blog posts are so informative. And if they could do one thing today, I know you've given us some amazing tips, but just one thing to really start improving their health. And it's, the food is good, and getting a little bit of shielding here and there. But what's one thing that you could say everybody could listen to today and go, okay, yeah, I can do that?
I'd say one of the very best things that you can do is start to address your circadian rhythm and your light environment.
Absolutely.
Get like as soon as you wake up, don't turn on any artificial light. Just try to get outside as soon as possible and get your eyes exposed to the natural sunlight, no matter what time of day it is. Right. Where you're at. I mean, the earlier morning when you can get the sunrise, it's better. Mm-hmm. But any time you wake up, just go outside first, take those socks off, get your bare feet on the ground, and just say, oh my gosh, thank you for this new day. Right. Get as much skin exposed as you can to the sun. That's going to help reset you for the day. And then, while you're out there, do a nitric oxide dump. Just do it, like that. You can look up the video and get that going. And then if you've already done it once, you might as well do it 2 more times, like spread out 3 hours throughout the day. And you're going to be doing a lot better, and that your blood's going to be flowing. And even if you already do exercise or full, like intense workouts, like CrossFit style, whatever you end up doing, like these little breaks of exercise throughout the day, they're just really good to get your blood pumping and to get that nitric oxide out of the cell, so that you don't have as much of that damage during the day from the EMF exposures.
I love it, man. You're speaking my language. Getting people outside first thing in the morning, that's the best. Circadian rhythm is where it's at. So, and EMF shielding will help with that for sure as well, help you get into that circadian rhythm. So you guys check out shieldedhealing.com. And be sure to sign up with his wonderful services. So thanks again, Brian. I appreciate your time today. I'd love to do this again. Hopefully it'll be with you in my camper showing me how I can make it better. So
awesome. Thanks, Jodelle.
Yeah. Promo code alert. What is one of the easiest tips to improve your sleep and lower your stress? Blue light blocking, of course. So Alan, nope, not your neighbor or your friend Alan, but actually artificial light at night, ALAN. Alan is something that after dark, if you have that artificial light, maybe fluorescent lighting or blue lights in your house, or a TV shining in your face, or a smartphone shining in your face after dark, stimulates your adrenals to not only make cortisol, giving you that I'm too wired to sleep feeling, but also blocks melatonin production. So even if you fall asleep, you will find you have trouble staying asleep. In addition to that, studies have shown that blue light after dark stimulates insulin production, leading to weight gain through late night munchies or just simply by muscle breakdown from stress. And that muscle turns into sugar. That elevates your blood sugar. That causes weight gain. So simply putting on blue light blocking glasses from swanwicksleep.com can be a recipe for sleeping better and even losing weight. And right now, you can save 10% off your favorite stylish pair of Swannies by using my code FITFOR10. That's FITFOR10. Visit swanwicksleep.com and use my code today. My favorite pair? I'm currently loving the aviators, so get you some today.